I want to turn to two other stories today. One has to do with, it was also at the UN. It's called this climate insanity. I want to introduce three facts and then turn you to a clip played at the UN climate conference or climate summit they had, which I think was yesterday, but whenever it was, President Trump notably did not attend. There's a big meeting in the UN. It's the 74th or 75th General Convention where Trump was speaking this morning. Yesterday was this climate summit and Trump did not attend it. But I want to just introduce three facts and then talk about that. Fact number one. There is no, as you talked about in the show before, there is no consensus. There's not a consensus that 97% of climate scientists in the world agree that man-caused catastrophic global warming or global climate change is even occurring. It is not true. There's never been that consensus. It was cooked up by the left, and one of those things they cook up and they perpetuate and perpetuate. But there's a new book coming out. I cannot wait to share this with you. A new book written by a Japanese climate scientist. And when I say a climate scientist, he has worked for decades in the climate sciences and was on board with the climate change fervor, with the climate alarmists. And so he's done all sorts of global warming science, testing models, MIT, Georgia Institute of Technology, Goddard Space Center, worked with all of them, published 20 climate papers. This climate scientist's name in Japan is Dr. Motataka. This Dr. Motataka Nakamura. And Dr. Nakamura, decades long, climate doctor, a climate scientist, has written a book in Japanese. It's now being translated into English. Let me summarize what he's saying. All this climate change hysteria is foolishness. There's no science to it. It's a lie. It's a hoax. And this is a guy knows what he's talking about. He talked, for example, he used the expression, the sorry state of climate science. The title of the book, as translated into English, is Confessions of a Climate Scientist. The global warming hypothesis is an unproven hypothesis. And so he has, you can read decades of his experience, but I want to tell you one among the many things he's talking about. All of the alarm about climate change, comes from models. Climate scientists gather data around the world, various places, they all agree on gathering data, and then they use it to create a chart, create an image for people to look at. And they create scary images based on data from this year, moving forward. Look at this, my gosh, the world's going to end. So that's what climate scientists do. They don't actually have any science to it. They're making predictions based on models. And that is precisely what this Dr. Nakamura is writing about, that the climate models are complete farce. They are not legitimate. He says today's vast panoply of global warming science, he puts global warming science in quotes, is like an upside-down pyramid built on the work of a small number of serious climate modelers. A small number, serious climate modelers who claim to have demonstrated human-derived CO2 emissions as the cause of warming, and they project that warming goes forward. Listen to this sentence. Every orthodox climate researcher takes this output from the modelers' black boxes as a given. So everything you're hearing from all these climate hysteria, climate alarmist types is all based in a small number of climate modelers. And so he goes through example after example after example of the farce of the modelers, how the modelers will decrease the temperature that was to have appeared at the beginning end of their chart to make it appear warming is occurring more than it is. He goes through many, many details explaining why this is just fiction. This is fiction writing by climate modelers. So this book is going to be coming out in English. In fact, I would read you some of this description, but honestly, it's so darn wonky and scientific that the climate modelers are going to have to do some answering for it. But he's the real deal talking about this problem. So this is coming out soon. And this Japanese doctor, Nakamura, is not the only one. He's just the latest one. He's someone who's able to speak without having the oppressive American media and the oppressive American left shut him down, mock him, deride him. He's able to speak truth about this climate agenda. Number two, I wanted to tell you about, before I get to what happened at the UN's climate summit yesterday. The Green New Deal is the biggest deal going in America for the effort to have, it is the target mission of the American left, if they can just get enough people to buy into their climate change alarmism, and then they want to have this Green New Deal out on the table. They have many, many people, significant Democrats, all of the candidates for president on the Democrat side have signed on to this. Just a few things that you wouldn't realize what might be in there. Banning all affordable energy. That's in the Green New Deal. Banning all affordable energy. Elimination of all fossil fuel energy. Elimination of nuclear energy, one of the safest, most efficient forms of development of energy. That's out. Eliminating 99% of cars. You don't think you'll have a car if these people got their power. Gut and rebuild every building in America. Eliminate air travel. You think you're going to fly home to see grandma next summer? I don't think so. No. These people are saying this is a totalitarian agenda, the Green New Deal, couched in terms of environmentalism. So, fact one, Nakamura's book is coming out. I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I want to get his name correct. It is Nakamura. His new book is coming out in English, completely exposing his climate modeling garbage. Number two, recognize how extreme the agenda is of those who want to solve the problem for you. It is pretty much a complete takeover of all of America. If you got the Green New Deal in place, you would not be able to tell the difference of America and some communist-controlled country. Number three fact, just one of many collections, but people have collected over time all of these past predictions of climate doom and gloom. We're all going to die. This is the latest thing. AOC, we're going to die in 12 years. This girl I'm going to play in a moment says 11 years, whatever. There have been climate disaster predictions for decades and decades and decades. From the UN, from climate scientists, who get on board with these because A, it gets them attention, B, it gets them grant money, C, it gets them fame and a name for themselves, and it causes, I'll tell you why this climate change mission has worked so well duping the American people, is because hardly any of us are climate scientists. Most of us say, well, gee, they're climate scientists, I'm not a climate scientist, I don't know about this, maybe they're right. The leftists who are pushing the climate change agenda are simply leftists who are using the climate change agenda as the latest vehicle to seize power and redistribute wealth. That's what the climate crisis is all about. The climate alarmism is all about. Now, I want to be clear. We have to take care of the environment. The environment is a different thing. The idea of clean air, clean water, making companies that have littered in the ocean or making anyone who's been polluting the ocean, polluting our lakes and rivers and polluting the air. Everyone insists that you have to have a clean environment, and no one is backing away from that. You can want a clean environment and not go along with the climate change hysteria. But the climate change people are about being in charge of everything, like Trump was talking about, the UN today. These are people who want power over you, and they have found a vehicle to convince you you must surrender to everything they want, including massive wealth redistribution because of the alleged emergency the climate alarmists are selling. Let me tell you just a few of these. This one writer happened to make a list of 41 past predictions of climate impending doom. We're all going to die. None of them came true. Here's one, 1967. We're going to have a dire famine by 1975. 1969. Everyone will disappear in a cloud of blue steam by 1989. You have, in 1970, we're going to have an ice age on the whole planet by the year 2000. Make it the year 2070. They moved it a few times. Ice age coming. They had scientific consensus. Planet is cooling. Famine is imminent. Famine is imminent. That was made in 1976. Then we had 1978. There's no end in sight to the 30-year cooling trend. And then we had, 1989. Rising sea levels will obliterate nations. This was a UN document. 1989. Rising sea levels will obliterate the the world by the year 2000, obliterate whole countries. New York City, 1989. New York City's West Side Highway will be underwater by 2019. Here we are. As far as I know, you can still drive on it. Arctic ice the Arctic will have no ice left by 2018. I could read you a list of 41 of these. And that was the third point. And leading up to this video I want to play, there's a young woman whose statement at the UN climate summit went viral. I mean, totally viral. She was talking about what's going to happen. This young woman, 16 years old, in a TED talk, has previously announced, she said to the world, she is slightly autistic. She has Asperger's or some limited degree of Asperger problem, and she suffered from depression. She was a testifier at the UN climate summit, and I want to ask Matt the Wonderful to play her clip for us, please.
My message is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
This young lady that you were just hearing speak, her name is Greta Thunberg. You can hear her accent. She's not American, but she's over in New York at the UN, the climate summit. I just want to say several things about her. This is not an attack on her. What I'm saying is an attack on her handlers. It's an attack on the radical climate alarmists that would use a young woman who is 16 years old, obviously, truly frightened to death that the world's going to end. Other statements, she's 11 years, 12 years, everything's done. She's making statements like people are suffering and dying. There's always that statement, no proof. Where? I mean, I am not blaming her. She actually has, as I've said, she has problems. She's already suffering from depression. She said so in a TED speech, and she has Asperger's, and she has some element of autism on the autism spectrum. She's not the problem. The problem are the leftist handlers who would delude her into thinking that what she's saying is real. I want to ask those leftist handlers, her parents, her education, the left that would fly her around the world in this climate activism summit, did any of them tell her about the list of 41 times that climate activists, climate alarmists have made absurd, bizarre, deadly predictions, and none of it happened? Did anyone point that out to her? I wonder if she would see it differently. She realized they're always making up this stuff, and they're always alarming people. Did anyone mention to her that books have been written, now a new one coming out I mentioned, books have been written pointing out that the climate alarmism is based entirely on climate modeling, which is not scientific, which is in fact intentionally manipulated to exaggerate the danger they say is being caused. Did anyone point out to her there's always a small cabal of leftists in this world pushing climate alarmism? We had statements I read on the show before. 2 different UN officials have said in different occasions, acknowledging the entire purpose of the whole climate accord and the climate mission of the UN is to force wealth redistribution. It's not about the environment. It's not about thinking that ecosystems are dying. It's not about thinking that New York is going to be underwater next week. There may be some segment of these people that believe that, but the manipulators, the ones orchestrating this, it's all about taking power, controlling you, and forcing the redistribution of wealth out of a sense of guilt and fear. That's what's happening. That young lady is a victim of the people manipulating her. And just if you heard the tone in her voice, she's scared to death. The left should be embarrassed, ashamed, humiliated for treating her that way, for giving her their one-sided, we're all going to die climate non-science, not telling her all the times that many, many times scientists have pointed out the climate models are false, the data is false, the data are false. There have been just dozens and dozens of predictions that never happen. Any kind of balanced presentation about the alarmism the left pushes about climate ought to be required to include the climate scientists who are saying this is absolutely bogus, this is absolutely ridiculous, this is not happening, this is a farce. But you have a young woman at the UN scared out of her mind. Her parents, her educators, her handlers, all of them have behaved atrociously in putting her in that position. I feel compassion for her. I wish she could receive better information and get a more balanced perspective about life, because yes, we have to protect the environment, but protecting the environment is not the same thing as buying into the radical climate alarmist agenda. Surrender all your cars, surrender your airline flights, surrender your comfort, be too hot in your home in the summer and too cold in your home in the winter. Get rid of all fossil fuels and rely on unreliable sources of energy. The radical agenda, and ultimately the international level, it's all about wealth redistribution. It's all about forcing the wealthier nations to simply hand over wealth to poorer nations. That's what it's all about. And it's about time more leaders like President Trump start speaking up about it.